morning. Welcome to Community Focus. We're going to talk to a couple gentlemen from the Sanitary Board for the City of Muncie and talk about some of the projects they have going on in the city. Gentlemen, could you introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Mike Klein. I am a professional engineer. I've been on the board since 2012. Water, sewer, wastewater. Had some experience out at the wastewater treatment plant in the 80s here at Muncie. And I look forward to trying to answer and give as much insight as I can to whatever you need to know.
Good.
Joe Evans, longtime activist in this community, came out of a union background in construction, came on the board in 14 and started out helping to put in place what we've got going now, Roger.
Okay.
A lot of large construction projects, and I kind of help muddle through the construction projects and keep them on pace.
Okay.
So that's what we're up to.
Well, let's start out with the construction project. It's been going on for a while now. You can give me more background on it, but I've seen it there in McKinley neighborhood.
A lot of our work, other than our trash collection and recycling, is regulatory driven, mandated work, basically. And there are two major mandates that we're facing now. One is that we have to, all of our sewer, 40% of the sewer system in Muncie is combined. So the stormwater goes into the same pipe as the sanitary waste. And then once that gets to the river, if there's enough rain, the water, it'll hop over a weir and go out into the water. And that's called a combined sewer overflow. Those are mandated to be upgraded and approved by IDEM. In 2011, IDEM did approve a plan for Muncie through 2031, and we pretty much are mandated to separate out the stormwater from the sanitary sewers. So that is one driver that affected McKinley, the project in McKinley. The other is FEMA and the Army Corps, and we have responsibility over the levee system. There's 4 miles of levee in Muncie, much of it built by the Army Corps in the 1940s. And we are to maintain the levee system that we can still have FEMA certification so that the flood insurance program can still protect people and their homes, and we can keep our levees up to speed. At the same year, in 2011, that certification lapsed. And now we're going back to a process of recertifying the entire levee system. It happened that in McKinley, we did both of these. We separated sewers to meet our IDEM mandate, and we rebuilt a levee to meet our FEMA and Army Corps mandate. And it worked out that we were able to separate out stormwater from basically Muncie Central High School over to Madison Street, Columbus, north to Myrtle, by separating out the storm sewers and then having that go into a pond, an earthen pond, to be pumped into the White River. And at the same time, we took the dirt that we dug out of the pond and rebuilt the levee on Elm Street. It was an old concrete levee there next to the Elm Street Bridge. So that worked out very well, and we were able to save money in meeting both mandates. It's a fairly attractive pond now. The City Parks Department's looking at maybe making that into a small park.
Really?
And that's another process that we're into now. We're just finishing up construction of it. So we had flood control. The FEMA does things differently. If you are behind a levee that's certified, you don't have to pay flood insurance. But if you're behind a levee that's not certified, you do have to pay flood insurance. And that's Roger, it's one of the key differences in Whiteley and McKinley neighborhood. McKinley levee had been certified, so if we can upgrade that to meet the new standards, those people still don't have to pay flood insurance that live behind the levee in McKinley.
Yeah.
But the Whiteley levee never was certified because the Martin Luther King Bridge was built too low. And at the flood levels, the 100-year flood levels, the White River will do an end around the levee system, Bunch Boulevard, and come in through the park across Broadway and then and flood the Whiteley system. And I've got maps I can show you later on that. So there's two completely different solutions there, even though they're only a half mile apart. One is due west of the other one. The Whiteley people do have to pay flood insurance now. The McKinley people do not have to pay flood insurance right now.
Well, let me ask you a question. I know nothing about any of this, but back in the day, now you said you're separating the stormwater from the regular sewage system. Now I know back in the day, a neighborhood I lived in, they was both in the same system, small pipes, and when we had any amount of rain, it would flood right into the basement and you'd get raw sewage and everything. So you're fixing all that stuff.
Yeah. The cheapest way to do it would be to leave the pipe where it's combined, both. Leave that as a storm sewer and then build a new sanitary sewer next to it and reconnect the laterals from each basement into the sanitary sewer. The problem we found is, Roger, that pipe that we leave that's left is probably 100 years old. It's too small. It can't handle major rain events.
Right.
So you can meet IDEM's requirement. You can separate the sewer in your neighborhood. They're okay with that, but now you got to come back to the neighborhood flooding and meeting those drainage requirements. And what you have to do is build these ponds like we did at McKinley and pump it into the river in order to meet both. So it's made for you have to be very strategic in the way we address neighborhoods, and it's literally neighborhood to neighborhood. If your neighborhood is within 150 feet of a big storm sewer or a ditch, that's a different way of separating because it's probably cheaper to put in new storm sewers. However, if it's in the middle of town and there's no storm sewers hardly at all with any capacity, then you might have to do the sanitary sewer separation and leave the old sewers as storm sewers. So every neighborhood has a different story. What's cool, and I'm sorry, Joe, if I'm taking too much. What's cool, though, is if you can go in and enhance that neighborhood. You can make that neighborhood better with the mandated separation of sewers and the flood control. And that's what we did at Lewick and Ribble. We were able to get into that neighborhood and separate out storm sewers, put in new curb and gutter, run it into a wetland pond, stormwater, and that's a new regulation. You didn't have to worry about stormwater treatment or quality before. And then let it run out into the river. But at the same time, we reconnected the Cardinal Greenway Trail. We have the wetland system. We put a kayak launch pad right there at Lewick Avenue. The mayor was there to make a speech the day that we cut the ribbon to open that process up. And 2 people were painting their houses of a blighted area. So we get in there and we repave streets and we add new curbs and we put storm sewers in, we put wetlands in, we put kayak things in. That's all nice. But now these people are upgrading their houses in the neighborhood.
Taking a little more pride in it.
That's what, like our canal over there at Liberty Street. That's another thing that businesses and the people around there are starting to upgrade just because we went in and did some stuff above the ground. Even though we're underground utility, it makes people get a little more pride, and they upgrade their own homes and their own businesses. That's what's special.
What is going on in the Whiteley neighborhood now? I know you started working there. There were some things going on. What's the process now?
Can I use my?
Yes.
This is the White River. This yellow line here. Here's downtown Muncie. That's Muncie Creek. And what this represents is the blue on this map is the 100-year floodplain. If you have a home or business that's in a blue area, you have to pay flood insurance. Normally, your mortgage company will require that. The district doesn't make you do it. FEMA doesn't even make you do it, but your lender usually makes that happen. So what you can see right now what the difference is between McKinley, which is right here, and Whiteley, which is right here, and that they have to pay flood insurance. There's a lot of pink boxes in there, but none in here. And the reason is because we fixed the levee system, and these folks know that they never did have to pay it, and they still don't have to pay it.
Because it's certified.
Because it's certified. But over here, even though there's a levee, the Bunch Boulevard levee here, that protects this, The problem is there are a couple things they still have to do. Because the flood water will come up here over the Martin Luther King, come back around through the park, and come back into here, and it's flood. So we have to do basically three things at Whiteley in order to get them to where they don't have to pay flood insurance anymore. One, we have to run an earthen levee right along the park on Broadway up to here so that the water can't come around anymore. So here's the White River, it's flowing down from Winchester, coming here, comes around and in here. So there's a low spot right through here. So if we can run an earthen berm through the park, through there, the water can't get there.
Right.
So the park can flood. There's no structure that we're worried about there. So that's number one. Number two, they also have to meet, we have to get this piece of the levee certified, which shouldn't be very expensive. We make it taller, a little wider, provide some certain things. But the last thing, though, that kind of struck the note of concern was you have to, FEMA requires you to be able to deal with a 10-year storm, not a 100-year, behind the levee while the river's up. And the reason they do that is because when you have a pipe that goes out, normally goes through the levee to the river for stormwater, this comes off this field, comes down here, Gavin Street, and comes through here and goes out. Like here, you've got these flap gates that lets the water out. But once the river comes up at all, even a couple feet, the river comes up and these gates won't open and everything starts to flood. This was actually taken in June on Gavin Street of the Whiteley neighborhood. So what do you have to do? Well, you have to do what we did at McKinley. You have to dig a pond. You have to capture the water and pump it and force it into the river by pumping it. This is the McKinley Pond. This is the new Elm Street levee. Here's Madison, here's Elm, here's Columbus.
Basically a retaining pond?
Yes, there's always water in the pond. So we put a fence around it for safety. And this is the area that is available for some sort of development for recreation by the city. Well, in order to build a pond, you have to acquire property. All the property that's in the low spot is developed. And there are homes there. We started in McKinley 4 years ago, buying up property between Madison and Elm, Columbus and Myrtle, okay, to the point where we could actually build this pond. All these were houses. All these lots were houses. And over time, we acquired the houses and cleared the land of the houses, demolished the houses. And then we were able to do, we had to get this much room so we could stockpile the dirt here, build the pond, pull the dirt back here, and build the levee. Okay? So we started down that road in Whiteley. And this is the 10-year storm that we'd have to capture. And this is where the low spot is. So this would have been a good place to build a pond like this in Whiteley. But we don't use eminent domain. That's our policy. We have to go through a dedicated process to acquire. We have to announce at a board meeting, we're interested in these properties, and you've seen those. We're interested in these addresses. So we're not, this is all kind of out there if you watch your show, Muncie TV. So we were looking at this, and then it kind of depends how many homes we can get in a certain area is how many we need. We could have made this thing work with just this many homes. And we would have had a deeper pond, bigger pumps, but when we were able to go to a big pond, when we had the area, we can have smaller pumps.
Right.
So we save money in the long run. But we can still do it either way. We can do a real small building with a sump, like a basement in it. We can build a small pond or a big pond. So we don't really have, Roger, we don't really have a budget of how many homes we have to buy. We have a targeted area that's in the low spot. But we don't really have an idea of what they cost or we got to get this place or we got to get that. However, we do need a cluster. We probably need at least 4 to 6 to 8 lots adjacent to each other to make this work. That's where we were going. We were going down the identical road to this in Whiteley when they kind of said, wait a minute, we're not sure exactly if this is a fair process to us. You've seen the meetings, they've been here, and I don't want to restate their arguments incorrectly. But we kind of put this all on hold. Because remember, there's 3 things we got to do in Whiteley to get these people to not have to pay flood insurance. We got to build this little side levee over here through the park. We've got to fix this piece up here around the levee, and then we've got to be able to deal with this storm, a 10-year storm, while the river's up, like we did at McKinley. So we kind of put that on hold. Now let me talk a little bit about this, though. We are going to move ahead on this. Right here is a ditch, Holt Ditch. This is Gavin Street. And a lot of their problems come from these farms up here and runoff. So we're going to build a pipe. We're going to build a little pond up here. We've already acquired the property.
Is that up by Elgin by any chance?
Yes.
Okay.
The Centennial, Gavin. We are going to build a small pond and run a pipe all the way down here into this ditch. That work should start within a month. Is that what we heard today?
Next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
So the pipe, we didn't have to, other than this, we didn't have to acquire. We're going to put the pipe down the road. We're going to go right into this ditch. And this fella sold us the property some time ago. So we are able to, we're going to help a little bit because a lot of this stuff comes into here. But we still need to, someday, there needs to be some sort of pond pump station built.
So you still need to acquire properties in that area to build your pond?
We do. And they have to be in a clustered area. Now, why was it so much more important than McKinley? Because they weren't paying flood insurance. Remember, McKinley was over here. So our primary importance was, keeping the levee like the certification like it is. And we still had to meet this requirement to pump out the water on a 10-year storm. That's why we built the pond. But this would have been really bad because these people would go from paying no flood insurance to having to pay flood insurance. They're already paying flood insurance over here. So it's less of a priority. We can take a longer look at Whiteley. If that makes sense. The good news about Whiteley is their sewers are already separated. They have storm sewers that are separate from their sanitary sewers. So we don't have to do that over here. We did it here because it all made sense to do both projects at once. So does that help?
That helps.
Okay.
So Joe, tell us about the concerns of contractor and security. How's that all work out there?
What was kind of unique when we started this project in 14 when I came on the board was that we had to do things to get the ARC to become viable entity downtown, and it had to do with run a new pipe. And Mike's kind of talked about why we do that and so on and so forth. But as I'd been in my background with construction, we came across the idea of doing this with a contractor that's called Energy Savings. And under that contract, it gives the board the ability to interview contractors and decide who would do us the best job. And what it allows us is we don't take all our information and get it to 100% totally. We take it to certain points, and at that point we give it to the contractor. He looks at it and goes, we can save money here, we can save money over here. And when you put those together, what we did is taken the money that we can get to and we've expanded it because we save money with the contract that we signed. And that's how we've done the canal. The canal was totally a freebie. It was just that we saved that much money by laying pipe, what we found and working with the contractors, that it created a nice opportunity. And we had those opportunities. And what we're doing now is through this contract, we've reached out to like Cowan. The school came to us We ran a pipe for the school out there. But we've got this savings left in our money that we've got here. And what we're doing is, we're not telling people they gotta hook up, but the people in Cowan, we've run more pipe, and we're saying, if you wanna hook up, we will help you get hooked up. And what we're trying to do is, for the health and safety of this community, we're gonna put in place opportunities for people in other areas like Cowan or on Burlington to hook up to our system, and some of those people will not have to leave their homes because they are being condemned because their systems are failing now.
Really?
Yes, along Burlington.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but what is unique is this contract, and it has been very beneficial to this community. You know, those two projects that we've got going there, Cowan and Burlington, will be nice for everybody when we get done. And those are very, very unique. But as we've done these projects, Mike's pointed here and talked about, you know, we've had contractors, subs out of this community that worked in areas. And at some places, we've had equipment and so on and so forth. And that equipment, it sets overnight, and sometimes we've had to have security on projects just to look after pieces of equipment. And if you look around town, you can see that there's places where we boneyard stuff. We pile it up so that we can get to it quick and move it away. But that security is no more than a benefit to everybody. It not only helps in your area, it should, very much so, because why? If there is a police officer who drives by every once in a while and looks at some of our equipment, it should deter crime. Mm-hmm. And those are all opportunities that we're trying to provide to this community. And we think, as a board, we're doing a tremendous job.
There's one other reason why we use security. As we go to demolish a house, like to build a pond, mm-hmm. At some point in time, the contractor has taken out the windows and the doors of the house, but before it's completely demolished, maybe, I don't know, a week or two, I don't know. But that's when we also ask for security, because people can get in that house in the middle of the night, you know. And I think one caught on fire. It wasn't one of ours. It was the city. I think it was not the sanitary district. So that's another reason why, as we get to that transition point on house demolition, that's another reason we put security out in these neighborhoods.
And for safety.
And for safety, yes.
Yep. And that's a lot of people take for granted the water they drink and the sewage that runs away from their property. And what we as a board are looking at is trying to, through health and safety, you help your community. You lift it up to where there are other opportunities for people that want to come to town, bring industry here and stuff. We're providing those opportunities for it to get away, be efficiently cleaned, put back into the system, and make everything work. And those are the good opportunities that make a city go. Mm-hmm. So,
one of the things that come to my mind, and I got pictures of it and things, is that big tank out there at the underpass, because for years that is flooded, and was a public safety issue, because once that flooded, and you know, I know a lot of people said, well, idiots drive into that water and get stuck. Well, you know, that probably happens. but you know, people drive into there, but when it floods and there's a train goes through there, you couldn't get from north end to the south end. Yep. And fire trucks, police cars, EMS, all that had a problem. But since that tank went in there, there's not been flooding. And even on November 5th, which we had, what, a 10-year flood mm-hmm. then? Yep. That pumped out, what 1.5 million gallons? Yep. And at one time, the deepest I seen it was about this deep for about an hour. And I think Doug Marshall went out there and cleaned off the leaves out of the grates, and then...
That's another example of killing two birds with one stone. Like McKinley doing the sewer separation and the meeting the FEMA requirement and upgrading our levee. That was a chronic problem since whenever they built that overpass, in the 30s or
36, I think.
whenever they did. That's one of those problems, Roger, when I referred to the more difficult stormwater solutions are the ones where the pipe or the ditch are so far away. And in this case, when we designed the pipe leading into the canal that went to the Ark Hotel, that's big pipe. That pipe's 84 inches in diameter. And at the end, it was 96 inches in diameter. That's big pipe.
It's big pipe.
Well, part of the reason that pipe is so big is because that big storage tank that on top of the Madison underpass has pumps in there. And those pumps pump that water that gets up in it. There's pumps that pump the water up into the tank. Then there's pumps that pump the water from the tank over to the big pipe at, was it Walnut and Church?
Adams.
Adams?
Adams.
Adams.
Yeah.
And then now we've got big pipe for that water to go somewhere. So the stuff that's under Madison underpass gets through basically goes through that piping system at the canal. And we're separating out, that's 1 million gallons of stormwater that's not going to the treatment plant. That's not going in the combined sewer or overflowing. We're separating that out. So it was a double win, double way to solve two problems.
When you think about the tank setting up there, Roger, that 750,000 gallon tank, if I remember right, there is a 42 or 45-foot structure just off to the side of it that is also holding a lot of water. When the water goes in, it goes in down at the level of the underpass, goes into that tank, gets into there, kind of held into there, and then it starts pumping into that big tank. Well, as the tank gets so high, and then it starts pumped out, and then it gets pumped into the system. So you've got a lot of storage there. Like you said, about 1.5 million gallons it pumped in a day that went under that storm. So
if we can separate sewers, deal with flooding, and enhance neighborhoods, we're hitting a home run.
Yep.
That's our goal on every project, is small neighborhoods or big neighborhoods.
Well, it certainly helped out there because we've had some major rains since then and flooding.
may get one today.
Well, my garden needs it.
Yeah.
So, now out there on you mentioned Ribble and Lewick, what was going on there, so sounds like you've kind of enhanced that area.
Oh, yes.
The projects that you've done. So anything else that's going on that you need to tell folks about?
All I would say is that we've got a lot of, Mike is, he's a good thinker about what needs to be developed and how we move through the process. He's put a lot of good things on paper for us, and we're working through those, and that's how we're getting these situations done. And if everybody wants to be part of the picture, we'll buy into that. But there are constraints that we have to work under. You know, the statutes tell us we have to do things these ways, and that's all we're doing. And all we want is everybody to take pride in what this board's tried to do in this community, and how it can help the well-being of the community just by the health and safety issues.
Well, I'm going to throw in a question here. We go back to Whiteley, and I know there was a lot of controversy with that, but with what Mike showed on there, if you don't get that done, that could flood. Is that right?
Absolutely. The last flood, the 100-year flood, was 1913. So we're already overdue. I mean, we're 5 years overdue. And that whole area that I showed there will have 3 or 4 feet of water in it. And they're paying flood insurance.
Right.
So it's a little less urgent than areas that aren't paying flood insurance. They
Right.
would have to pay flood insurance if we didn't maintain the levee certification.
Yes.
But it's sometime there will be, well, you just saw in Maryland, there were 2 100-year storms back in 6 months.
Yep.
Hurricane Harvey was a 500-year storm.
Yep.
A few years ago, I went with Mercy Management down to Nashville and Clarksville. Floods aren't no fun.
No. Good. You questioned or you asked about things, but the plant, nobody thinks about the plant, but we're putting millions of dollars into the plant to upgrade it to where it will have capabilities far beyond the needs of this community. Well, we're out there now putting, how big's the pond we're putting in, Mike?
15 million gallons.
A 15 million gallon pond. Once again, it's just like the little one over on Elm Street again. If you'll put under a big event, water will go in this pond, it'll sit there, then it will be moved around or settled out a little bit, pumped through our facility, and then pumped into the river. But that pond is a huge, nice piece of work, and we'll show it to everybody here in the late fall. So
And we're using state-of-the-art new processes. We're replacing 60, 70-year-old processes with new stuff as we are making things bigger to deal with more water. And that, again, it's just that common sense. Let's do multiple wins on a same project. If we can get stormwater out, sewer separated, meet new regulatory requirements for treatment plants with new equipment, state-of-the-art, let's do it. Let's solve as many problems. Our board is solving as many problems as we can with the money that comes into us, and doing it. If you can, again, do that and make the area neighborhoods better, then you really can walk away proud of what you've done.
out at the plant, we've got, there's a levee that runs around the plant. Well, it's kind of a little bit low in places, so we're going to have to enhance that levee and just to secure the plant at some point. And because it would be millions and millions of dollars, maybe billions, if that plant ever went under and was taken out by a flood. And the community really can't afford that. So we need to do pro work now, build some things in place that will help that plant stay and, once again, keep the community viable. And that's all you're trying to look at, is make things work in the future. So, yep.
And avoid flooding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you being on the show and then bringing us up to speed on your projects and how they work and how you want them to work, and for the work you do and enhancing the community.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Community Focus.